No, just to unmute. Yeah, she said she'll give me a second. Yeah.
It'll be up. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Concordia University's Fourth Space, and thank you for joining us for today's event. Next one in our series of the Hope and Agency in Uncertain Times Conference, How Digital Disruptions Are Changing Our Social and Environmental Spaces. To help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Fourth Space. We are also located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Fourth Space, we like to work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities to help examine research questions projects across the university. And for those of you joining us on Zoom or have been here since this morning, we welcome your comments and your questions via the chat. Those of you in the space, just raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you for any questions there so that everyone can hear you. With that, it's my pleasure to pass it to the Loyola Sustainability Research Center co-chair, director, principal. Thank you, James Joran. I have too many windows open. Jim, welcome back. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you for the introduction and the land acknowledgement. Thank you to Doug, Bertie, and the team at Fourth Space for helping us with this conference deeply. So thank you very much. So I have an easy job today. This is our third event, day 2 or 4-day sustainability conference, which is going great. Doug's already introduced the topic. I'm going to turn it over to Micheline Ayoub, who will introduce the panel members. Micheline is the, I'm going to get this right, is the Future Earth Canada Global Hub Director and Executive Director of Sustainability in the Digital Age. And she has agreed to kindly host this event and interview the speakers today. So Micheline, please take it away.
Thank you, James. So thank you, everybody, for being with us this afternoon. I would like to say a word about sustainability in the digital age. We are a think tank at Concordia here, and we host the Future Earth Canada Hub. Together with Future Earth, we explore how digital innovation can be used and support healthy people and a planet in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainability in the digital age grew from a research framework exploring digital disruptions for sustainability, created in collaboration with over 250 experts and supported by Les Fonds de Recherche du Québec. We work to be a bridge between sustainability science and digital innovations to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We work on 3 main areas: research, advice to decision makers, and in training and networking. I'm happy here to be today with our 3 panelists that have graciously accepted to answer some of our questions. I have no particular order, so I will start with Byron Tymas. Byron is a guitarist and a composer and an educator. He is currently coordinator of the jazz studies at Concordia University in Montreal here. Previously, he was an associate professor of music and department chair at North Carolina Central University, where he taught guitar, jazz arranging, jazz composition, jazz combos, and other courses for over 20 years. Baron has served on advisory panels of many organizations, including Jazz Education Network and the North Carolina Arts Council. He is a native of Washington, D.C., and he earned a Master's of Music and a Bachelor of Arts in English from Howard University. Next, we have Dr. Sabine Bergler. She's a professor in the Department of Computer Science and Software Engineering here at Concordia as well. She earned her PhD from the Computer Science Department at Brandeis University in Germany, her master's from the Department of Computer Science at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and she did her undergraduate education at the Institute for Informatik in Stuttgart. She is a founding member of the CLAC laboratories, and she conducts computational linguistics research here in Concordia. Last but not least, Damon Matthews. Dr. Matthews is a professor and research chair in climate science and sustainability here as well at Concordia. He holds a PhD in climate science from the University of Victoria and is a member of the College of New Scholars, Artists, and Scientists of the Royal Society of Canada. He has published more than 100 research papers on topics ranging from quantifying the remaining carbon budget to assessing equitable approaches to allocate emission allowances to individual countries. He is internationally recognized for his work on policy-relevant climate science, as well as for initiatives such as the Climate Clock that uses digital visualization and web-based technologies to motivate and accelerate climate action. Damon is our scientific co-director at Sustainability in the Digital Age, and he also directs the NSERC Create in Leadership and Environmental and Digital Innovation for Sustainability, the LEADS program. Some of you may know the LEADS program, which aims to train graduate students at the intersection of sustainability science and digital innovation. Thank you for being here with me, and welcome to this panel discussion. So I'm going to start with some questions to our panelists. We chose them to be from a varied and wide variety of topics to make this discussion a little bit more lively than perhaps what you are used to. So Byron, I'm going to start with you. You will have a few minutes to answer my first question. As a musician, you are involved with the Next Generation Cities Institute here at Concordia as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that role and how the arts contribute to building more sustainable cities and communities? And I would like to know, how did you get involved with them from the beginning as well? So I'm adding just a sub-question.
All right, so those are great questions. First of all, before I answer anything, I would just like to say what an honor and a privilege it is to be here with you all talking about what we're going to talk about today. And I'm sure some things are going to come up that none of us had planned. And I'm really looking forward to asking you some questions. But also, before I ever came to Concordia, I heard about Future Earth. And this is the first chance that I've had to work with someone. So I'm super excited about that as well. And anyway, I'd like to, first of all, tell you a little bit about Next Generation Cities Institute. Some of you may know already. It's a multidisciplinary research institute that was started in 2020, and it was started, the co-founders were respectively an engineer, so a solar engineer and physicist, and an architect, so a design person. So if you look at the intersection of those two fields, basically you've got science and you have humanities. So the architect, basically, she is a specialist in knowing and trying to predict and help encourage human activity. So the science part, I don't know if any of you ever read, well, I've been reading a bunch of depressing books the last 20 years. And probably you have too, some of which are more encouraging than others. But one of the most depressing titles I ever read was Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. Have you ever read that? So it's about 6 years old or so. And so he says that science is the easy part. It's humans that are the hard part. So our behavior is what impedes our adopting a lot of sustainable practices and even adopting things that the people that we hold to be experts deem to be the smartest things to do based on the science. So the clusters within the Institute, there are 3 research clusters. One is called Built in Natural Environments, and there are 2 co-directors of that. One is specialist in geography, planning, and environment, and the other is a finance person. So they're also kind of from different streams of thought, or as the words that we use now, knowledges, I guess. So and the second of the clusters is mobile, secure, and sharing cities. And the 2 co-directors of that, they come from engineering society and information systems. So engineering society, includes civil engineering and things like that. So the third research cluster is design, arts, culture, and community. And that's the one that I'm part of. And my co-director is from geography, planning, and environment as well. And I'm a music professor. So I'm a jazz guy, guitar player. But one of the things that underpins the way that all of that is set up is the multidisciplinary approach. It's also transdisciplinary approach, so that we're not just throwing things that we're learning from our separate disciplines, but we're combining and trying to create synergies in the way that we think and plan and create our activities. Ultimately in there, we know that communities that are sustainable have to be places where people want to live and work, or else they won't go there. They won't stay there. They won't make agreements and abide by those agreements with each other. And communities are more attractive, and they will hold people if they're vibrant and if they foster creativity that the arts nurture. So that has to do with how we incorporate the artistic side or the humanities with the sciences. We're looking to foster sustainable environments. The arts have dual roles. So, basically the arts, literature, music, performing arts and visual arts, we can model good behavior. We can also offer cautionary tales for bad behavior. And so I don't know if, I'm sure some of you have read Shakespeare, but we've got a bunch of cautionary tales there, and that are really very vividly and literally given to us. But music gives you lessons that are not necessarily always easy to break into discrete parts, but they also give you visceral experiences. So, well, does that help to answer?
Yes, of course. And I like the work that you mentioned, transdisciplinarity. This is something we like to work on at SDA and Future Earth.
Oh, that's it.
May I ask you another question?
Sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned, we have said that you are a jazz musician by training. You just also touched upon how critical it is to bring a diversity of voices into conversations about sustainability. Yet the arts, the performing arts specifically, tend to be underrepresented in conversation about science, digital innovation, and climate action. Is there a way to go about changing that?
Sure. If I could, I'd like to read a little bit from a course description of an undergraduate course that I have this term. And my course is called Jazz and Sustainability. And part of the course description says, jazz is an art that balances improvisation, discipline, individual expression, technical skill, shifting leadership, and focus. Will be examined in this course as a microcosm and laboratory of societal cooperation in relation to the SDGs. So those are some of the activities. I think that way of thinking about it gives opportunities to think of the arts as modeling behavior. So from the humanities side, But also units of this course I put them together to focus on how specific artists and communities of musicians across time and space have addressed or intersected the context of each goal through text, aesthetics, creative process, and public interaction. So coming out of that course, there's an activity it's actually going to be here at Fourth Space in April, and it's called 17 Stations. And as you might guess, each station represents one of the goals. And so what we're doing in that course is we're providing stories, localized stories of how individuals, organizations, and governments are approaching or intersecting or interacting with each of the goals. So I've written a bunch of music that we're going to split into 17 speakers and have them around the room in different places. Each speaker will also have text or a virtual reality station or a gaming station that will give people a visual or sensory experience with one of the goals. So we've got 4 VR stations, and we have RAs who are working with creating VR environments. They actually already have, because we're almost at the end of this. We're about to have it here in about a month. So we had these really brilliant people who were media artists, and they're creating these environments to give people visceral experiences. So it's not just stuff they're reading. And the same with the game. So we have example for part of the game. Chris Gibbs created a couple of scenarios where people are putting waste, they're recycling their trash and compost in different right places and doing other things having to do with waste management. And then we're collecting data as to people's behaviors through that. And with the VR, we have similar types of things where inputs are then fed back and so I guess part of the answer that I'm trying to give is that there are a lot of ways through innovation in our practices, in the materials we use, and other types of things that are useful in the intersection between science and the arts. Hopefully more activities like that and things like that will be useful as we continue the conversations about sustainability.
Can I ask a little question about the course?
Yeah,
Does it take a music degree to attend your course?
it
Or
does
is it
not.
open? Or is it,
It's-
it sounds like a wonderful course for sociology, basically.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, it's like, can I attend your course at some point?
Sure, come. Well, I mean, I'm not a sociologist, so it would be baby stuff for you
Yeah.
to
I'm not a
But it-
sociologist either,
oh,
but I would
yes.
think that your course would be a lot about music, but
Okay.
apparently it's about how music can affect our lives.
Sure.
And if it
That
doesn't
is-
take any other prerequisites, perhaps, I don't know if the people here would like to take it as a
Well,
means to achieve SDGs or one of them. So
if
I'm
we
not
have it
doing
again,
any
yeah.
marketing here. It's
No,
just
that's all right.
out of
Well,
interest of
thank
for
you.
music. But thank you very much, Baron. I'm gonna move to Sabine, who's on your right. Sabine, your work explores natural language processing, or the way I put it, correct me if I'm wrong, the ability of a computer program to understand human language as it's spoken and written. We are hearing more and more about the social risks associated with that, like algorithm bias, data privacy, misinformation, etc. Do you see opportunities for those algorithms, or we may call them artificial intelligence algorithms, to flip the script and to contribute to enhancing social cohesion?
Yeah, thank you. Is this okay if I put this down here?
Yeah.
No, I need to, okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping it carries through. Yeah, this is passionate, and I feel I need to first limit myself not just in time, but in topic, because I feel AI, the word AI, the term AI has been used for too many different things lately, different ideas. And I will be focusing on two here. One is the, so I'll not, closer? Okay, sorry. I said I'll focus on two aspects what AI can be used to, referred to. One is the algorithms, and I'm going to peek at my notes to stick to the time frame. So first of all, there are AI algorithms, and artificial intelligence for decades always has been about exploring a possibly infinite problem space with some annotated goals for particular purposes. And this algorithm is always, when it's AI, approximative. If you can really do it, and you know how to do it, we don't call it AI. That's called something else. But when we ever refer to AI, then it's always something that's essentially impossible, and we're doing a proxy. And it's understood that this is proxy, and so it's always fallible. It can always go wrong. That is the very nature of doing an AI type of exploration in the computer of some external problem. So this is always involves building an internal abstract model in the computer of that problem space somewhere out in the world. So this is true for traditional AI as well as machine learning and deep learning. What has brought this recent interest in AI about is just a sub-area of machine learning. So one sub-area of AI, and it's a sub-area where that model building is constrained to neural nets. That's it. So any of those different AI exploration techniques, deep learning, machine learning, traditional AI, whatever, is a tool, like a hammer. And as a tool, it just sits there. It doesn't jump out and do anything by itself. And it in itself is neither good nor bad. It's not biased or ethical. It's not right or wrong. Tools can be faulty, and so they require quality control. A hammer can come apart if it's done, if it's produced faulty, as it's used the wrong way. But other than that, it is a tool. We can think about the algorithms per se as tools. On the other hand, AI applications, you've started this talking about this, the AI applications, which are recently sometimes referred to as NAI, which they're not AI anymore, in my opinion. These applications, just like a smithy, is not a tool. Even so, hammers figure really prominently in smithies, but a smithy itself is not a tool. It's a totally different thing. And if you use your smithy and you build it out to just building swords or torture instruments versus you're doing horseshoes, or it has nothing to do with the hammers per se. That is an application, and this is human design. And we're coming back to always the same ideas, you know, no matter which field we come from. We converge on these ideas. And so I feel also the risks that we discuss in connection with AI are usually risks of the applications and come from when we apply AI techniques without scruples, without proper design. Design is so important, right? And without effective oversight. And that's when I feel things go sideways, right? And the fact, for example, that a facial recognition algorithm lays bare patterns in data sets, that can be used for good. For example, to question why, you know, black faces occur correlated more in certain police databases with undesirable labels. And this is the field of social sciences. And AI can be wielded as a tool to notice patterns like that before they become, you know, we know about this pattern because it has been long found. We don't need AI for this anymore. But to find patterns like that, AI tools can try to bring them forward if we properly equip them for that. And if they are calibrated if they're reviewed, and if there's the quality control for what the AI algorithm does, how it is set up, how it is parameterized, and what its data is, because the algorithm knows nothing that you don't allow it to see, that you don't give it as input. And there is very, very little discussion about that. The same algorithm can be used to replace a police officer's time spent to review things, to review camera footage or whatever, to save time, to save cost, without applying it, without calibration, without oversight, without quality control. And then the outcome is at the mercy of how complete the reference data set is and how representative. And we know that from polling institutions, their forecasts are only as good as their data gathering was representative. And this is something that we don't hear talked about so much when we talk about the risks of AI. And this is something where the social sciences, the humanities, as much as engineering, can contribute to improving that. So in short, in the general term, if that AI is used in connection with saving money, with replacing people, in connection with doing things that we can't possibly do otherwise, that's when I worry, that's where I see risks. Because then we're doing things uncontrolled, and the outcome may blow up in our faces as so often. So my ray of hope lies in tempering the discussion a bit, and go towards design. We need to design what we want to use AI algorithms for very carefully. For example, we all want AI to help spread information. We need to think about why, what information, for whom. You can't just say, oh yeah, apple pie, motherhood, apple pie, computers, they spread information. You need to target it. The people who spread misinformation, they have clear targets. They know who they want. They know how to get them at the same time. We need to tailor, we need to design if we want to have this for spreading information. Social media makes it faster, just like the printing press did, the spread of information. But per se, social media also are just this kind of channel. The AI algorithms that social media use, they enable people to look at only stuff they want to see. They don't force them to only look at that stuff, but they enable them to live in these echo chambers. And this is where the problem comes in, and where, for example, music can tell us, because music goes straight to our emotions, right? What is seductive? What makes us encapsulate? What makes us go? So AI algorithms can help curators, navigate the overwhelming amount of possible sources. And in my opinion, AI itself cannot fix the wrong, but it can help those who try. And it can help to level the playing field just as much as it can create disparities, problems, misinformation. But true information is still powerful.
Thank you. I have another question for you as well. So you did say something about the social impacts of AI. And actually, I understand that it's not the algorithm, it's perhaps the use of the algorithms and the data. Staying on that topic, from the energy perspective or the environmental impact of those algorithms, what can you tell us about that? Like the use, you mentioned the use of the algorithm and the data. Now, they are everywhere. We're using them in very many different applications, social media, for instance, but what about the environmental impact, not the social impact?
That's a wildly understudied area, and where we have to take, certainly at universities, hang our head in shame a little bit, because in most university programs, there are some that do pioneering work, but in most computer science, engineering, university programs, we use the new tools, always the new shiny thing for publication and all that, and we do not accrue a record of what the cost is behind. We lag behind in that. There is no infrastructure really to support measuring and making it obvious to users the enormous amounts of resources that they use. Melissa Heikile, if I say this correctly, in the MIT Technology Review, and I'll cite this, she says that generating one image with generative AI techniques now, like DALL-E or whatever, takes as much energy as fully charging your smartphone, according to the study from researchers at the AI startup Hugging Face and Carnegie Mellon University. One picture. This has big implications, she says, for the planet, because tech companies are integrating these powerful models into everything from online search to email, and they get used billions of times a day, not to even speak of all the Instagram ha-has that we do after 10 o'clock at night. So when we're not really able to do anything more focused. So Google owns enormous server farms all over the world to support my laziness in not looking up my dentist's phone number in my address book, but just Googling it for it. Battery packs of cell phone after cell phone that enable me to keep my calendar, my reminder notes, my shopping lists on the cloud right now, rather than carrying a calendar and a notebook and looking it up the old-fashioned way, which I'm still familiar with, right? And these the batteries, they create toxic waste, right? That we currently, we're not paying for the cost of properly disassembling and recycling them. And AI-supported infrastructure could, for good, instead help our worldwide recycling efforts possibly to be coordinated. It's good at matchmaking, right? Existing communication networks could be enhanced with additional sensors for monitoring and are. These are not necessarily incredibly insightful ideas of mine, but things that are going on. But in the small, we need to push for that. Equipped with more sensors to monitor indicators for natural disasters, right? And then AI models can predict more than just weather with these stations. Prediction based on financial data can help stave off recessions by floating interest rates, as we can currently, this is what's happening here right now. We see. So these are applications of these prediction, and this is only one application of AI, of course, that are useful. For applications of AI and the algorithms of AI, my hope is really that creating more recognition and understanding of their promise on the one hand, and the impact that they have, that leads to regulatory frameworks in the end that put things into perspective. And this is not specific to AI. We need to really, in all matters, we have to develop a whole systems thinking approach. And for everything that we produce, we need to factor in costs, not just at the time of creation, but for lifetime and after. And we have to think in that, not only locally, but globally and long term. And we have to make the unsustainable inefficient from the outset. And these policy issues, they can't come just from above. They can't just be decreed. We have to create the buy-in from the grassroots. We have to educate as universities and all, and so that many people will ask for these policies, will ask as a social contract with future generations.
Thank you. So I understand the university has a big role to play in that.
I am a professor through and through, and I think universities like libraries, are resources, and they're becoming more important. And the libraries are slashing their books because they can't pay the rent anymore, because everything is and in my mind, that's a disaster. And universities have to be seen as more, well, electronic data goes bad. Paper has more staying power. I'm a very old-fashioned person in certain things.
I'm
Universities.
yeah, I'm going just for my own preference. Yes, thank you. I like paper still to read. That's why I have my little paper. Thank you, Sabine. That was very insightful. Damon, recently, we're going to change, not necessarily the whole topic, but change a little bit direction. You wrote an article in the Conversation. For those of you who don't know the Conversation, it's a publication that goes basically around very many different countries and very many different languages, but it is basically written, or it's to democratize science and scientific knowledge and university knowledge. So it's written by people like Damon and edited by journalists. So in your article last month in the Conversation, you mentioned the decline of outdoor skating rinks and winter sports in Canada due to climate change. We see it, you know, it's March. Basically, sometimes we used to send our kids during March break to do skiing or skating. We couldn't do that this year. So practically speaking, what has to happen in the next 10 years to save the skating rinks for our kids who like to skate and to become perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, so
Wayne Gretzky.
I do have to say that, you know, the loss of outdoor skating in Montreal is a bit of a first world problem when it comes to the overall climate challenge and the climate crisis. There are many, many more acute and dangerous things going on in the world that are all, you know, effectively from the same source, which is, you know, we need to actually start trying really, really hard to decrease emissions as quickly as possible in order to, yeah, and it is about a 10-year window in which we have to, you know, cut our emissions in half globally and then get them all the way to zero eventually. I mean, the reason I have written about outdoor skating, you know, various times over the years is because it's something that people understand, and, you know, despite its like, you know, there is a certain triviality to it, but it is also a pretty core aspect of Canadian culture that people care about. And so I think it is important to frame environmental challenges in a way that does, you know, resonate with people, and that resonates with people who aren't necessarily already on board with the fact that there's a problem and that there's a crisis that needs to be addressed. I mean, I will, like, it was interesting when I was researching this article, and this kind of segues back to the technology and digitalization question. I mean, it's easy to find examples of technologies that are being developed and evoked to try to solve problems that are really kind of an add-on Band-Aid type solution that, you know, doesn't even touch the root cause of the issue. And so I encountered a story about a team, you know, that was studying the Rideau Canal and looking for ways. So the Rideau Canal, last year there were no skating days at all. This year there were like a handful, and so it's, you know, it's a fairly dramatic, you know, acceleration of the decline in skating days we've seen over the years. But so what this team was doing is looking for ways to kind of mitigate this effect, and so they developed a, you know, quite cool little mechanized snowblower, basically, that could go out on the ice and you know, remove the snow, you know, in conditions where like the traditional machinery couldn't because the ice isn't thick enough. This would then allow the river potentially to freeze more quickly without its like cover of snow. And so, you know, it's a neat idea for sure. And you can imagine how AI could be used to kind of, you know, make this even more efficient, and to have, you know, mechanized autonomous robots who are trying to kind of amplify the freezing rate of the river using precision technology. I mean, it's not going to hurt, but it's not going to, you know, it's not going to slow the progression of climate change that's ultimately driving the loss of outdoor skating. And so I think this is an example of where, you know, we can look to technology as a really important solution, but we have to direct those solutions at the problem and not at the symptoms. I mean, okay, sometimes the symptoms are so acute that you need to address them as well, and that's certainly the case in the climate world as well. In the case of, you know, the Rideau Canal, there's no amount of automized mini snowplows that are going to save the decline of skating days. I mean, that will only happen by actually addressing the climate problem fundamentally. So yeah, I think there's lots of really interesting ways that digital technologies can amplify progress. And I mean, I think, your points around like the choices we make around how to use those are really critical. And I mean, I also really, I really like, Baron, your analogy of jazz as a microcosm for, you know, collective action. Or it does seem like the ultimate example of transdisciplinarity, where a group of musicians come together and create something that requires like listening and creativity and collaboration, and you create something new that didn't exist before. And yeah, if the world could take that essence and apply it to international climate change negotiations, we'd probably get a lot further than we have so far.
Thank you, Damon. So you mentioned coming together. Sabine mentioned perhaps some training for students, etc. You mentioned also your course. Now the question to you is, in your LEADS program, you have led that now for several years, and you have held many LEADS events, some of them here at ForSpace. Do you think this program has evolved since you started, and what impact do you think that program has had on the broader sustainability community here in Montreal? I understand, I am an advocate for education, but I do understand that education in different fields or in transdisciplinary field is a must, I would say. But I would like your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, the goal of the LEADS program was and continues to be to, you know, to provide education at the interface of sustainability and digital technology, and to give the students some understanding and insights about how these new tools can be used in effective ways. I mean, I think one of the key differences between the hammer and your typical machine learning algorithm is the complexity involved in the use of the tool. I mean, yes, it requires some training to use a hammer effectively, and certainly there are other, you know, construction tools that require a lot more training. But the learning curve associated with applying a machine learning algorithm to an interesting topic is pretty steep. And I think one of the problems in the world right now is that the people who, or the kind of the people, and it's not even people, the powers that be that you know how to develop and use these technologies are also the ones that are, you know, causing so much of the environmental damage that we're seeing. And so you know, the fact that AI technologies are being used, you know, for the most part in the world right now to, you know, accelerate environmental damages, to increase consumption, to make it easier to, you know, buy things and degrade the environment. I mean, that's because it's the same, you know, the same forces and people and companies who are developing and applying these technologies that are actually causing the problem in the first place, and or even system. I mean, it's a systematic issue. So in order to be able to apply these technologies towards societal good, they need to be available to the people who want to promote societal good. And that requires education, because, you know, it's not straightforward. I mean, I've been running this program for 4 years, and I still haven't totally got my head around how to, you know, develop or run an AI or apply it to something. I mean, I understand conceptually how to do it now. And that's a big step in the right direction, but it's not a straightforward thing to do. And so, you know, education is really key, because, you know, in order to have these tools and technologies be a force for positive social change, we need, you know, the whole world to understand how to use them in that way, and to understand their potential. And so that, I mean, that is what we're trying to do in little ways throughout the LEADS program, is to kind of offer insights of how digital technologies can be used, to offer some, you know, training about the kind of techniques of actually doing that, and ultimately to give students, you know, a little bit more understanding that they came in with about, you know, how, you know, what we can do going forward. You know, this idea of digital disruptions in the title is, you know, it is really important. I mean, the emergence of ChatGPT last year is, you know, a prime example of a digital disruption that's kind of changing everything now. And you know, by and large, you know, again, right now it's kind of furthering for the most part, I think, furthering the forces that are, you know, degrading the environment and increasing inequalities and you know, undermining sustainability. Whereas, we need to be able to use this and other technologies to go in a different direction, and that requires people understanding how they work well enough to apply them to the right questions.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question or a general question. I don't know how you're going to frame it. Do you think there is hope for the future? And what would give you hope for the future in the light of what you just
start with that one?
Yeah.
No, there's no hope.
No
We're all
hope?
doomed.
Just go home now and, hide under the bed or.
I mean, it's a good question. It's also kind of, I mean, there's only one answer to that question, and which is that, well, I'm sure you're gonna.
I'm gonna
No, it's not there's only one answer, but I mean, fundamentally, in order to move forward in the world and exist and continue living, we have to accept that there is hope for positive change, and so yes, there is, and there has to be. Otherwise, like, we give up now and accept that we're all doomed. I mean, those are kind of the two choices. So yes, there is hope. In the specific climate arena, climate change is very incremental, and it's the more we emit, the more climate will warm, the more changes will occur, and so that process is going to continue for as long as we keep emitting. But if we can actually change course and get emissions down quickly enough, climate change will slow and eventually stabilize, and we'll be left with a new climate. But if we do it fast enough, not one that's completely unlivable. And so, we need to just get on with it and do it. And I would say that the hope that we can get there comes from identifying the things in society that can change really, really quickly and leveraging those. And digital disruptions are not the only thing, but it is one of those things that has and is continuing to change society very, very quickly. And so if we can leverage those things towards the right end goals, then we can accelerate changes in the direction we need them to go. But it is a choice, and it's a choice that people have to make to decide that, that's the future we want, as opposed to the other one that we're heading towards right now.
So we come back sort of to the topic of perhaps education at different levels of different parts of the society. Thank you, Damon. I'm asking the same question to Sabine. Do you think there is hope?
Yes.
And what gives you hope for the future in this context?
I think, as Damon said, there's always hope. And the hope always comes sort of from the same thing. We work together. Disruption has always been possible disruption. And it's taken on more catastrophic forms and less. And yes, the hammer is maybe a particularly tame tool. And maybe you want to think about ChatGPT more like, at the other end, a nuclear bomb, which in my lifetime, they've been sitting in silos. We chose to not drop the things. And so ChatGPT also is something that you use it, you accept it, people used to accept it, or they use it in a different way. They do not try to cheat with it. They do not try to substitute secretaries with it. And so this is our choice. It's a personal thing, and we need to think a little more. And this is something where I blame the pandemic also. Not that it helps and all, but I see people less and less congregating as, in sort of communal settings. Community has been outsourced into Instagram chat groups and whatever. And I see a difference. I'm old, right? And so maybe I'm just not using it the right way. But I think when we come together and when you educate, we listen to other people's concerns, we recalibrate our thinking in the context of something a little bit outside our own horizon, I think that's where always the hope lies. And then when we educate, universities all the way. But then again, I'm old.
We are in the right place.
But not just at the university, right? We have to go out and we have to try to tell people, and we have to be ready to not always be right, and to not always be loved for our comments. It's not all for likes. Sometimes you just have to say something, and you have to know, oh, they're groaning, and you're saying it again, you know, as happens to teachers, but parents. But that also is that there's a little thread. It's not all just in disruption. There's also continuity, and everything biologically has a sense of duality, right? We've always developed sort of two parallel, but not quite the same systems for things. And so I think diversity is important. Talking is important. Accepting that, yeah, you were wrong is important. And then picking up and saying, okay, maybe that's my hope. To really feel that we're in control. And this is a societal thing also, feeling of being controlled by AI, for example, by an AI, by social media, by somebody else. Them, you know, a lot of this conspiracy thinking, there's a big them that is outside of one's control. That is deadly. I don't know how to, don't ask me. I don't know how to stop it.
No, I would just take a word from what you said, added a word to, perhaps I understood from Damon, and say continuation of, or continuity of education to disrupt behavior, perhaps to change certain things. I'll pass the mic now to Baron with the same question. Do you think there is hope, and where could it come from for the future of sustainability?
Yes, well, I think that there is hope. I think that we have to ask what it is that we think the hope is for. So we have to define what that word means, because I think we are during the course of developing and improving mitigation strategies in all realms, be they, if it's mitigation of climate, based on engineering and scientific advances, if it's based on social advances and combinations of those two things, there will be certain mitigations that will be successful. If we're talking about adaptation, I think we're going to have huge adaptation. So we can be hopeful for those things, but there will be, it's quite, I think, fairly obvious that there are going to be some people in this world to whom those successes will not be apparent. So there will be cataclysms that happen, and there people, if you're at the bottom of a flood, it doesn't matter to you who else survives. So I think we will have situations where we're going to have, you know, a fair amount of disaster for a fair amount of people in different parts of the world. But I don't think that we will get to extinction, if that's what, you know, of ourselves. I don't think that we will get to that, but I think that, again, if you and everybody that you know does not make it, then to you, the world didn't make it. And if you're able to escape and you have a pretty safe living environment, and you and yours, your loved ones and your friends and those in your sphere are able to have that same kind of experience, to you, the world made it. So I think we're going to have a very mixed bunch of results. And just how mixed that is will depend often on where people live, things like that, as well as how mobile they are, you know, based on education, a whole bunch of things. So yeah, I think there's hope, but we're gonna have problems, and we are already having problems. And that's just when we're restricting things to the human dimension. When we're talking about other species, if we value them and think of them as having a fair amount of worth, and then we're thinking about the other living things, yeah, there's stuff happening, like, you know, accelerations of different type of extinctions. That's happening, but there will be new growth. And I mean, I don't think I'm not talking on my butt here. I mean, I think this is pretty obvious. So the answer to your question is a very complex one to me.
Thank you. And I do hope there is hope. That's for me. We have a few more minutes. Actually, I don't need 2 mics. And I'm wondering if anyone in the audience here has a question to any one of the panelists we have at the table. Yes, in the back, please. Please also state to whom you're addressing your question.
My question is to people in the area of AI and algorithms. Right now, from what I understand, it's people who create the algorithms for the whatever they're making out of it, like the hammer or whatever it is they're making. They create the algorithms. But I was just listening, I read an article written by the CEO of NVIDIA. He sort of said at some point in some time in the future, we won't need people to create the algorithms. You can use AI to create the algorithms. So people will not be necessary for that. So that means, if he's right or wrong, I have no idea. That means people lose control at that point, because we're talking about control. You're always saying we need to keep things under control. But by doing what he said it's possible, we end up losing control. What will happen then?
I'm guessing this is a question for Sabine. Here's your mic.
You will stop me.
We
if I
have
go on too much.
4 more minutes.
4
4 minutes? Okay, I'll stop you at 4 minutes.
Depending on what he means with an AI, all AI algorithms I've seen run require to be provided data, required to be provided the parameters under which they run. They can be rigged, so they can themselves vary their parameters. That can be done, but they require resources. I have not yet seen a perpetuum mobile. I do not know how that AI generates endless energy. So I feel it is a philosophical construct more than current reality. And I personally would much rather at the current time, but I think I'm older than him. That may always just factor in somehow. I would like to factor, to look at things right now and see for the technology we have, the somewhat more pedestrian technology, even so, yes, it is, and not focus on ChatGPT so much, but on something we know to control better, while the academics and the industry people get a better handle on ChatGPT and its the large language models and how we provide data for it. But using the stuff that we already have under control to equalize a little bit of disparity of because it's very important. Yes, I say my hope is in motherhood and apple pie, people coming together, we can overcome everything. Yeah, I understand that's very naive, and I'm speaking from a very high level of privilege here. And that if you have nothing, or you perceive you have nothing, this is why I think some talk that speaks too philosophically negative about things creates a feeling of despair where it's maybe not even yet real. I think that is something where I feel we should put resources we have to make people feel more empowered, or at least less what's the word? Disempowered.
Yeah.
And to actually spread the possibilities. That's why we have to, more people have to understand what can be done and how they can use these tools for themselves. And there should be a little bit, I'm also for regulatory, just the simple thing that information should be accessible to people. As simple as there could be a little bit of standardization of websites for government information. So it's not every time you go to it, you feel like a total idiot because you can't find the particular information that you had a week ago because it has been improved and you can't follow it. That is something we can work for. We can work for that people, when they lose abilities, be they cognitive or other, that they still have access. This is something we can work for, and we can use the techniques we control to try to. Can they fix something that is ultimately a man-made problem? No, but it can possibly mitigate.
Thank you, Sabine. I also am an advocate of easy to find information on websites and not having to change the websites every week. Well, I think this is all the time we have. I don't know how to turn this off, probably this way. Thank you very much, everyone, for being with us this afternoon. Thank you for having done the trip from wherever your class is or your lab is. Thank you, Damon, Sabine, Baron, for this very nice transdisciplinary discussion, if I may say. And thank you, Rebecca, for organizing all this.
Yes, thank you all for coming. And thank you for this really interesting discussion. We can continue in the space. Please do stay if you're here in person. There are snacks in the back, coffee. If our panelists could stick around, I'm sure there are lots of people who want to talk to you here. If you're online, I am sorry, we do need to wrap up because we're starting back again in half an hour and we have to get our tech moving. Please do come back in half an hour, and we're also continuing in the space tomorrow and on Friday at Loyola. So you can see one more. Okay, never mind. There we go. Stop. Okay, so we do have a panel coming up, our last panel today, which is on local conservation initiatives. Please join us for that in half an hour. And then tomorrow we have a full program as well, starting at 9:30 in the morning and running till 5 in the afternoon. We will be here in the Force Space in person or on Zoom, the same place you found us today. And then Wednesday, that's tomorrow, and then Friday, we have a full schedule at the Loyola campus, only in person. So you have to come where the party is at Loyola, join us for lunch. We will have in-person conversations. It will not be available online. I do need to thank really quickly all of those who have helped us with this event and who continue to do so, especially the team at Force Space. This whole conference is organized by the Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability and the Loyola Sustainability Research Center every year. And we are very grateful for our collaborations here, the incredible patience and expertise of the team here. Also for funding from the Office of Research, the School of Community and Public Affairs and First People Studies, the Science College, and the Departments of Biology, Geography, Communication Studies, and Political Science. I'm not forgetting anybody at Concordia. And we hope to see you back in half an hour. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you to everyone involved with the Hope and Agency in Uncertain Times conference, our panelists, Baron, Damon, and Sabine, and our moderator, Micheline, for coming into the Force Space today and activating this conversation. To everyone online and all of those of you here in the space, thank you for all of your questions and contributions as well. We're going to be closing up the live stream now, but a quick reminder that this conversation is already available on our YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit it or share it. So please join us for our next event with the